I'm John Kaiser at the Metals Investor Forum in Vancouver, May 15th, 2022. I'm talking with Joe Ovsenek and Ken McNaughton of P2 Gold. Joe and Ken, welcome to Vancouver.
Thanks, John.
The Gabbs project, copper gold system, you plan to have a PEA out before the end of this year. You're optimistic it will be robust because of the way you're going to manage the ore schedule and then leaching the oxides first and overcome the early capex negative impact of capex on the after-tax NPV. But there is also this $8 million plus balloon payment that comes due in 2023, and that may be hurting the stock in terms of you getting better respect for this project that you have. If when your PEA comes out, it is robust, but we're in one of these market dumps where copper and gold are weak for whatever reason, and this deadline is approaching, what is your contingency plan for making sure that you keep or vest title for Gabbs?
Well, actually, as rather than contingency, our plan for paying off that $8 million due after we complete the PEA is to sell a royalty on Gabbs. We feel we've done a lot of desktop work. We've seen what we feel are revenue, cash flow, and we think a 2% and change percent royalty will actually pay that amount and give us a bit more to put money into the ground. So the reason we focused on a royalty is that, we have Gabbs and we have BAM, and so we don't want to dilute our shareholders' interest in BAM by funding the acquisition of Gabbs. So Gabbs will pay for itself with a royalty, and then we'll use equity to expand the drilling at Gabbs.
Now, at Gabbs, you are developing the near-surface 4 zones that previous groups had discovered, but the geophysics has shown that there's something very interesting going on at depth. What reason do you have to believe that the grade of this, if it connects to the Sullivan and other deposits that are near surface, that the grade will be better so that it can support underground mining, block caveable type grades? What's in the geology that makes you think the grade gets better if they do call less at depth?
Well, typically in a porphyry system, the mineralization can bleed into the country rock. But there are those deposits like Oyotogo that in fact the grade stayed within the intrusive. And the evidence we're seeing for that is in the surface zones, our best grades are actually in the intrusive. So we've got sills or thrust wedges of intrusive, and they're running 1 to 2 grams gold and 0.3 to 0.4, 0.5 copper. When we move into the country rock below that, the gold grades start to drop off very quickly. So we think we're in one of those types of deposits where the mineralization stayed with the intrusive. Now what we're seeing are either little squirts coming off the main deposit or they're thrust wedges. So the deposit's been cut up and shifted around. So we think when we get down and find the source, and we believe we've identified that with the geophysics, that we're going to see those 1 to 2 gram gold deposits plus 0.3, 0.4 copper. So a very rich underground type deposit.
When people associate copper with Nevada, they think of the Yarrington system, but I don't believe they have any gold in that system. How is your system different from the other copper systems in Nevada?
Well, we seem to have a Walker Lane system, so that is Walker Lane's typically gold. There is the copper deposits. So we have this stockwork that carries most of the gold, and that gold is free gold, which we've seen in our metallurgy, and that's why our recoveries on our oxides and actually in the sulfides as well is so high. So we've got the copper system and the gold system overlapping each other, but they're coming off the same porphyry system. And that's actually very typical for an alkaline porphyry, that the copper comes off at one time and then the gold comes off.
Okay. Now, BAM is a more traditional exploration play. It's in the Golden Triangle. And it's the mineralization at surface, as you pointed out in the presentation, was discovered in the 60s and 70s and poked away at. What are you seeing that's different about this system than what the previous operators looked at and limited how much work they got? What are you seeing that makes you so enthusiastic that you got an 8,000 meter plus drill program starting this summer?
Oh, for sure. So, in the old timers were looking for grade. So the 60s, they found these spectacular copper zones. In the 80s, they found some very high grade gold zones. They went in, they tested them, and they all turned out to be small. And there had been little bits and pieces of work done up at the Monarch Gold Zone. So we've just come along and said, well, we want a clean slate. So we did a full soils. We identified this large gold soil anomaly. And we were getting up to 5.7 grams gold in soil. So we came along and drilled those. And what we're seeing is these beds of siltstone that are all metamorphosed now, and they're carrying the grade. Well, those are recessive. And what was sticking out of the ground and what people could actually sample was, in fact, the enclosing rock, the dolomites. And you hit those, you get no grade at all. So basically, these things stick out of the ground, but they're covered with a meter of soil. And so nobody saw them, no one could sample them. So we have a very simple exploration model. We're going to chase those to depth. And at some point, they're going to hit a contact, and we're going to drill this way for our near surface mineralization. We're going to drill that way for the feeder zone, which we expect to be quite robust and high grade.
So when I look at the golden triangle diagram, I see BAM in the middle of it, middle of nowhere. And off to the west is Galore Creek, which is a world-class deposit, but who knows when and if it'll ever get that into production. Is your location, is there anything positive that can be said about it, say relative to Galore Creek?
Well, we're within, well, what are we, a mile and a half, 2 kilometers roughly off the Galore Creek access road. And that road's actually built up to our property. So it wouldn't take much for us to push a road into BAM from that access road. So, and then we have the Northwest Transmission Line with lots of capacity available on it. It's about 30, 35 kilometers to the east of us, but we could build a transmission line up from there a lot easier than we built the transmission line at Brucejack. So when we look at BAM, the infrastructure that's near at hand far surpasses what we had at Brucejack, and we put that mine into production. We took it from discovery to production in under 8 years with far worse infrastructure.
Okay. And Newcrest paid $3.6 billion to acquire Pretium and its Brucejack operation. It's also now the majority owner of Red Chris, the copper gold mine, where its focus is to do the underground block caving activity. Newmont just bought GT Gold and its Tatoga copper gold discovery. What are these American and Australian majors, gold producers, thinking in going into the Golden Triangle?
Well, I think there's a couple of things happening here. One, the Golden Triangle was really underexplored until we discovered the Brucejack deposit, which we brought into the mine. And as we advanced Brucejack and people saw that we could permit and build a mine within the Golden Triangle in a reasonable time frame, exploration really picked up in the area. The other thing is the majors, I think, have really taken on the focus that, look, for a major gold deposit to be the size that they want, it really is a porphyry deposit, because most of the major gold mines in the world are copper gold porphyries. And so the Golden Triangle is home to copper gold porphyries. There's a lot of them there. And it's just a question of finding the ones with grade that you can take into production. So there, I think it just fits well. If you want a mine that's going to be long life with good economics, you want one of these big porphyries, and the Golden Triangle is a place that's underexplored.
So if we compare the copper gold porphyries from Golden Triangle to the considerably smaller copper gold porphyry that you have in Nevada, what is the potential that Nevada has an unrecognized bounty of these copper gold systems that are, because of the weird topography of Nevada Basin and Range, has been hidden hidden from view all this time.
I think it's entirely possible, and you know, Nevada was the silver state, and then it was the gold state, and I think they just haven't looked for copper, and I think they're going to find a lot there.
Okay, well, I hope you have success on both those fronts.
Well, so do we.
Yeah, and thank you very much.
So Joe and Ken, thank you, and P2 Gold for being part of the Metals Investor Forum.